Welcome back to the WODprep podcast. I'm your host, CJ DePalma, with the better host, Claire Bays, and one of the most influential coaches in our space, Chris Hinshaw. Hey, man, thanks for taking some time this morning.
I appreciate it.
And coming out. How are you?
I'm excellent. I'm really blown away at the number of people that are here.
Yeah, there's so many people here.
It's really refreshing to see this.
There's so many people here. I thought there was going to be like 100, and there's arguably 400 or 500 people walking around.
Right.
And funny thing, just to like jump in, probably not even to our topic. There are so many new affiliate owners that are here right now, like within 12 months.
Yeah.
So many.
Well, what's really interesting, so I do track like the affiliates, like which ones are coming and going, and
right.
You could track that information, right? You could find out when people have come in and what are the new ones, what are the old ones, and that transition. And there is a huge influx of new gyms, which I find really interesting, right? Like CrossFit always talks about the number of gyms, but how many left and how many are coming in?
Yep.
And there's a lot of new ones that are coming in. And one of the things that was always interesting to me, and I do a lot of work over in Europe, these new gyms, they're not familiar with the history of CrossFit, but one of the things that they're interested in is trying to catch up on what they missed out on.
Right.
Like they get into the culture, I think, because it's a way for them to establish a brand and to be able to be recognized in their community as a credible space. But as soon as they're into it, they realize that that legacy that's in place is real and it's solid and it creates value and they want to catch up on it. Like it's a cool little piece of what did I miss out on?
Yeah.
And I like that. I like that a lot.
Speaking of doing a lot of work in Europe, it's funny, I have like a personal bias to this. I did a road show with Gus years ago.
Oh my God.
And so, yeah, for the brand WIT, whenever he was doing a lot of work for them.
Yep.
And so anyway, it's just, that would have been, I guess, 2022, I believe, in the early portion of that year when we did that work together. And so we literally lived on the road together for, I don't know, 6 weeks, something like that. So seeing that you work pretty closely with him.
He's a partner.
Yes. Yeah. And so you're doing a lot more work in Europe. And I guess we could just kind of go straight there first. Like, what is all of that you're doing? Why are you over there so much?
So a couple of years ago, I became familiar with the sport of high rocks. And it was interesting to me that what they did is created a event that essentially was CrossFit-based movements.
Yes.
But they made it into a longer time domain. And I was really I was fascinated by the way in which they put the events together. And I thought, wow, this is really something that is kind of a true hybrid between the sport of running and what CrossFit is doing. And what makes it unique is that it's the same event over and over again. And there is some appeal to that, where if you do a first event and you have a positive experience, there's going to be a motivation to want to do it again. It's the same thing that happens in running, right? Right. You kind of get a taste and you want to improve. That appealed to me back, this was good 2.5, 3 years ago. And I got to know the people that were coordinating high rocks in the US, which got me involved with the HQ people in Hamburg. And I've spent a lot of time working in that space over the last 2 years, a lot of time. I'm on they put a online level 1 course together, and I'm one of the 5 coaches that they picked. My module is called the High Rocks Engine, which I'm super excited about. And I'm the only specialty course that they've approved. And so because of that work, it really got me into the space of like wanting to understand how to actually coach that type of an athlete. It is a hybrid athlete, but it's different than doing a triathlete. It's different than coaching a CrossFit athlete. And so that's what I've really spent my time on is how can we optimize it? And so, like, for example, my keynote today, it's really going to address the affiliate. And if that high rocks athlete walks in the door, I want to give you a tool that with 100% certainty, you'll get them as a client. And one of the beautiful things that High Rocks does is that, there's rumor that they have a 92% retention rate. So if you do
what does that mean? What's that measurement? Like, is that like race to race or like, like gym membership?
If you do one race, you're going to do another one.
Okay.
And the reason why is because they spare no expense when they put together their events. So for example, their event in New York, they lost money on. They spent $1 million on the venue. because they want it to be a showcase. They want it to be something where you go in and you're wowed by the spectacle of it all, and you will come back.
Yeah.
Do you think, we'll really dive right into it. So I have a few questions based on that. So the repeatability concept, right, of like the same race over and over again. Do you think the runner or the CrossFitter stays longer?
So I think that all the time. I find it's really the dynamic of it, because you have these pure runners that are coming in but getting throttled in the stations.
Mm-hmm.
And so they realize that they want to focus on it. The problem is that there's a lot of brainwashing in the community about interference effect, that if I do too much strength-based work, it's going to interfere with really what I enjoy, which is running.
Mm-hmm.
And that needs to be overcome, which it will overcome. And we've seen that in the sport of triathlons. Heck, we see it now in, 3,000, 5,000 and 10,000 meter runners at the Olympic Games, right? They're all doing a strength-based protocol.
Right. They're getting stronger. They're getting bigger.
Right. And they realize the value of that.
Yep.
And then on the CrossFit side, it's really interesting. Like I work with Jeff Adler and been working with him for 4 years. And in my opinion, one of the most dominant aerobic athletes to ever exist in the sport of CrossFit. That doesn't mean he can run 8,000 meters. He's not trained for that. And so really the obstacles for him present zero issue. The question is, what if he backed off a little bit on his CrossFit training?
We're going to get into that.
Yeah,
100%. I want to dig into like your training with him at some point. We're not there quite yet. So the question is like, do you think the longevity of high rocks, right, is the runner or the runner or the CrossFit athlete? Because those are the two people, right?
Well, so
primarily.
That's what's a really interesting thing. So there's projections now for 2026 in the sport of high rocks, and there's more interest in competitions than there is people doing marathons. I think that there is a migration from the running community. It is. Well, in March in the Olympia event in London, it's 9 days. There's over 100,000 athletes competing in a high rocks event. 100,000.
That's crazy.
And so there is a bigger migration coming from the sport of running, and runners are more steeped in, I'm going to redo it over and over and over again.
Yeah, that's what they do.
And CrossFitters, it's not that way. They're more into the variety.
Right.
Right.
It was a leading question. Like it's for sure the runner, right?
Yeah.
It has to be. The
For
runner
sure.
is totally content doing the same thing over and over again. And now their same thing has been broken up into the same thing plus 8 other things.
Yeah.
Right.
And so like, oh, that's literally 8 times the length of their lifetime of what they've been doing, right? It's like, oh, now I get to work on running interval or rowing intervals or skiing intervals or
that's right.
Burpees and et cetera, et cetera. And I get to integrate strength training and I run a 15-minute 5K. I don't quite need to be that fast to be a really competitive high rocks runner, right? I need to do a 320 or a 330 pace along with, be sub 4 at all my stations, right? Or sub 330 or whatever it is.
But you have to realize what goes into being able to do that. So I'm lucky enough to work with, some elite 15s in the world. And these guys come in, and when I do my initial conversation, they're doing 100,000 kilometers a week and running.
Right. That's so crazy.
So you talk a CrossFitter about doing 62 miles a week. It's it's unfathomable.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
Well, and I see too, as far as which one is going to be as far as the retention goes, it's just a difference in approach, right? As far as the runner comes in and they train, I would imagine once they get a taste of the high rocks, then they're training specifically for that. Whereas the CrossFit athlete will do repeated races, but they're not necessarily specifying their training for high rocks exclusively because they're CrossFitters. So they're still going to also be a repeat customer. They're just simply not gearing all of their training towards this one thing. It's just kind of and I'll go grab that on the side as well versus the runner, now this is what I do.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's more complicated for a runner though, because they're dealing with these 8 different stations, which are new to them.
Yep.
Right.
It's a lot to learn.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Where a CrossFitter they've already got their head wrapped around the running. They just need to do different types of running. Right.
Yeah.
And so it's easier for a CrossFitter. And that's what's really an interesting piece. If you look, not so much here in the US because there's not a lot of events, but High Rocks, because it was born out of Germany and the way they delegated early on and establishing partnerships with various countries, the growth within the European market is massive. And for the first time, CrossFit gyms in Europe are filled because it's these runners that need help.
Right.
And where do you go?
Where would you go?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
because how do you train for high rocks? You do CrossFit.
Yeah.
That's right.
Well, and that's also an interesting dynamic, right? So there's a lot of issue about the movement standards and the movement efficiencies, the quality of movements that these non-CrossFit athletes are doing. And there's like a lot of criticism coming from CrossFitters about look at that. And it's ironic that now CrossFit's becoming really the sport that can showcase good movement, safe movement, right? Which is a boost for what's actually in the past of what people used to talk about, right? It's now coming out that this is actually a very safe and sound approach if you want to train and compete for the sport of high rocks.
Yes. Yeah. Well, we have the data to back that up now. You know,
now
like,
we do.
Yeah. There's enough evidence to show this is a really safe way to go about it.
Yeah.
Right. So you've been in this space a long time, and so it seems like you're shifting. Are you still work with Jeff?
I'm not shifting at all.
Okay.
I feel that diversification is valued, and I've always never tried to build an empire. I like doing things that appeal to me, and this really appeals to me. There's a lot of learning involved, and it makes me, I think, a better coach and a better educator. Like today, when I present, it's
what's your topic?
It's essentially, so since we have a basically a audience that is filled with affiliate owners and affiliate coaches.
Yes.
What I want to do is I want to present the opportunity of high rocks that if an athlete walks in the door, I want to give you tools that with 100% certainty, you will get that athlete to come into your gym. You will have a competitive advantage over everybody else because you were here. And that's what I want to share with them is they're different. And if you're not aware of that difference when they walk in the door and how to appeal to them, then they're not going to stay.
Sure. So you're very intertwined in both spaces, probably more than most. Do you feel this, I don't know, innate competition between it? Do you feel pulled in either direction to like support one or not support the other, or like, argue in one direction or anything of that? Like, do you feel like High Rocks is going to, big High Rocks, like,
that's a good
pros,
question. That's a good question.
They feel like it's going to crush, like people like, oh, High Rocks is going to take over CrossFit, or, or like, oh, High Rocks will fade, or, obviously it might not, or whatever. I think we are very much in the High Rocks boom for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'll just kind of let you answer that question.
I honestly find the response from CrossFit HQ regarding High Rocks as bizarre. I don't understand. For the first time, we have a sport that is feeding the affiliates unlike any other thing that we've ever experienced before. And who cares if you look at CrossFit and you look at High Rocks and they're like, High Rocks is nothing more than CrossFit, so we don't want to participate and we don't want to support. It's like, I find it childish. In my opinion, I would if running CrossFit, I would pay for a 10x10 booth and have a local affiliate owner where that High Rocks race is, man that booth. I'll give it to you for free. I want you to go out into that space and you recruit, because this is, I mean, imagine in London, there is 100,000 athletes that are walking through that venue competing, and every one of them should be a member in a CrossFit gym.
Right.
Every one of them should. We should be looking at it of going, what an incredible feeder system into these affiliates.
Yeah.
And I think that it should be promoted. I think it should be endorsed because they're one and the same. Now, they still operate business differently, and this is where it does get competitive. High Rocks wants to become an Olympic sport.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Well, so functional fitness, there's a movement in becoming an Olympic sport. High Rocks is taking a different approach by partnering up with Triathlon Federation, who already has the module, to be able to fast track into becoming.
What are they going to call it? Because they can't call it High Rocks.
Who knows?
Right? Because it's like the brand can't be the sport.
Well,
right? That's like the whole gist behind the Olympics. That's why CrossFit was or that's why IF3 has really struggled, because of like it's primarily CrossFit, blah 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 blah. Right?
Yeah. So if you take a look at what happened in the sport of triathlon, so back in my day, the Ironman organization was sold in 1992 for around $10 million. And it was bought up by this organization called, it was a Triathlon Federation. What they did, that organization, is they split off the professional rank and they created a separate entity that was fast tracking towards the Olympic Games.
Got it.
The Ironman organization split off, and that's what they did. They created Ironman. And so you then saw Ironman organization branching out and doing events all over the world. And it is a massive, massive brand.
Right.
Matter of fact, people do triathlon still to this day, but you know what? Have you done a half Ironman with the brand,
sure.
a full
Right.
Ironman with the brand?
Do you have the tattoo?
And so those have stayed separate. Ironically, that Ironman brand sold multiple times. And I think the last time it sold, it was almost $800 million.
Yeah, it was almost $1 billion.
Right.
Now, yeah.
Because if you think about it, that's the value of the brand.
Right.
So they split that off, but the professional organization, and imagine if High Rock splits off their professional organization, right, which is different, right? They have prize money obligations now. They have drug testing obligations.
Sure.
All of that stuff would be under the IOC, like those standards.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Triathlon Federation has already proven how to take triathlon and make an Olympic sport.
Right.
They can easily fold High Rocks under their umbrella, which their umbrella is dying, right? They need some new blood.
The IOC.
No, the Triathlon Federation.
Oh, yeah,
right?
sure.
And so what better way for them to get back into the game again by taking this sport?
Yeah.
And maybe it's not going to hit in 2032, but who knows?
Do you think the triathlon is totally different topic now? Do you think the triathlon struggle like Olympically is just because that distance is unique to the Olympics, like the Olympic triathlon distance? Like if they did an Ironman distance, do you think it would be bigger and more successful?
I think there's a lot of gee whiz factor in doing an Ironman.
Yeah, for
right?
sure.
Like there's not another sport event out there that is
gee whiz.
Yeah, that's attainable, right?
Yeah.
That's like everybody will start out in a 5K, and then where do you end up? And the holy grail is full Ironman.
Or full
Ironman,
sure.
And then Kona being so the mystique behind doing Kona, because you just can't get in.
Right.
It creates a buzz of like, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
What if I do another one and I could qualify? And so they have a formula that is very, very impressive, but they also do the same. They do a world-class event.
Right.
It's just world-class. They've got it dialed. And so when you experience that, any mistakes that occur as an athlete, it's your fault. It's not the organizing body.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Switching gears. I'm really interested in training Jeff and taking arguably in 2020 or 2019 one of the top 5 strongest athletes in the sport, or at least at the highest level, and turning him into the most aerobic athlete. Not that he wasn't somewhat aerobic always, but walk me through that. What does that look like? What can you share about that training design? Are you still working with Jeff?
So we started working together 4 years ago and still working today. Yep.
Cool. And so how do you take someone that, wins the total right in 2020 and to, a, I don't know, sub 10-minute 2 mile or base or whatever, 10:30, whatever they ran,
he ran a 4:56 in a workout for a mile.
Yeah. Whatever they ran, the 4 mile. I mean, it was fast, right?
That.
So, how does that happen? What does that look like? And I definitely have some like more follow-up questions behind that, but yeah. So
Carolyn Lambray's coach, that's number one. You have to have someone that is knowledgeable, that understands. I was asked yesterday, someone asked me, who is your favorite athlete that you've ever been able to work with? And I've been lucky to work with a lot of people that have ended up winning the CrossFit Games. And I was spoiled early on by Jason Khalipa, right? That I had an athlete that was interested in everything that I had to say, wanted to absorb the information, but never question it and did it. As an athlete, that's very rare. Nowadays,
at the highest level, it's very rare. It's still pretty challenging at the highest level.
It's
blind loyalty is really tough to find. Not that that's a great thing or a bad thing, but it is. Every athlete has their very strong opinions.
Well, and especially, younger athletes today, they're those things that value what I would provide don't resonate at all, because they're filled with a level of confidence that I don't need anybody. And that's their downfall. The problem is that when the downfall occurs, it's too late for them now, because there's too many other up and comers. You don't have the luxury anymore of making those types of mistakes. And so Jason as an individual athlete was unique. Well, nowadays it's very rare to have a high level athlete that doesn't have a primary, let's call it head coach.
Mm-hmm.
So like with Katrin Davis-Daughter, I worked everything through Ben Bergeron. Very unique coach in that I had unlimited flexibility to do whatever I wanted, which is incredible that he would allow that. That's died too. That's gone. They want to dive into the detail. Essentially what you're doing is you're training that coach and you are essentially convincing them that this is the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
And you're educating them. But if that coach doesn't want to learn, if they don't want to have the patience, if they don't have the intellect to be able to absorb concepts and to be able to think through, right, that roadmap and integrate it into a plan, it's never going to happen. Carolyn Lambray is one of the smartest coaches that I've ever come across. And that is the secret why Jeff is so good, because she is on her game.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not easy to take an elite level athlete like a Jeff, because he's neurotic too. He's got his ups and downs, and she's got to manage that in some way. I don't. I feed it into her and she puts it into the pipeline.
Got it. So, so how much of Jeff's training, like a percentage, do you control or manage or whatever? Or are you just over like supporting Carolyn in her design?
No, so I do all of mine. It's all independent.
Okay. And then is it all monostructural stuff? Like,
No.
you do mixed modal work?
Yeah. So one of the things that we are doing, I'll give you a little insight into the future of the sport, is we all know about VO2 max testing. We all know about, your maximum oxygen uptake in the movement of, let's say, running, or, what we call classic monostructural.
Sure.
Well, 2 years ago, we mapped Jeff of so on Echo Bike, what's your VO2, your lactate threshold, your zone 2 numbers, by wearing a mask like a Pinoe or a VO2 master device. And we did it not only on like Echo Bike, but we did arms only on Echo. We did legs only on Echo. We did legs on C2. We did rowing. We did ski. We did running. We did all of those movements. Well, these devices are portable. And as and I don't want to say I'm a researcher, but I am a researcher. I mean, one of the things that I'm interested in is, can you capitalize on an athlete that, like a Jeff Adler, who has spent equal amount of time in every movement? Normally, when you get a VO2 test where you're testing your maximum ability to bring in oxygen and use that oxygen in the muscles that you're using, you do a test on the sport or the movement that you actually train the most in, because that's where you're going to have the better number. Well, for the first time, we have athletes like a Jeff Adler who actually has developed a multitude of movements way beyond traditional monostructural. And wouldn't it be interesting to map the human body and movement and where are limitations from truly what's happening inside, your ability to move and use that oxygen? So we look at a multitude of movements, right?
Yeah. Isn't that what Evan's trying to do? Peon with Training Think Tank, and he has like the small, the blood sample
blood
test.
Lactate.
Yeah, but like he's trying to do it with he talks about like delivery or like absorption, like oxygen, like to the forearm, like to the biceps specifically. Is that it's like the general thing, but you're looking at it like from a mask perspective. Like
I'm looking at it more from an aerobic and heart rate standpoint. What I'm looking at is what the muscles are doing, and also then what the cardiorespiratory system is doing.
Got it. And so when you're doing that, are you doing any like non-traditional movements like burpees, thrusters, etc.? So what does that look like for Jeff? Like, do you see, like, obviously VO2 max is substantially different under load than it is, because like when you become super aerobic, it becomes relatively passive, right? From like an activation standpoint, right? When you're a really good runner, people are like, oh, I run. I'm like, yeah, you can run forever, but if you don't squat, like your quads, once you become really efficient, like you're not using a lot of contraction, right?
Well, so we're using it to find efficiencies in the way in which you're training. So nobody has unlimited free time, and so if you do train, what you're looking for is a higher level of precision. The more accurate you are in your programming, meaning the personalization of the programming, the greater adaptation you create. Matter of fact, that's really the holy grail in programming. The movement today is this athlete-centered model. that what you're doing is you're taking an athlete and their goals, but you're looking at their results, their prior results, their max effort results, their numbers, and you're integrating that into a plan. So if, for example, if I coached you in the sport of high rocks, what I would do is I would program every single one of your running workouts with a precise pace. And that pace is targeting some kind of metabolic or muscular adaptation.
Right.
That precision is how you actually win. That's how champions get it. But you know what? Unfortunately, the masses don't have access.
Right.
But today, they know that that's actually what they need.
Right.
And so with Jeff, what he's getting is a level of precision in the things that I program that no one else can provide.
Sure. And that's just from your testing and your time with him, because that takes time to build, right?
It takes a long time.
Yeah,
That's why, you know, I had Hunter McIntyre stay at our house once, and nice kid, right? One of the most dominant Spartan athletes and high rocks, you know, athlete ever. And it was commented upon. I did a podcast after that, and what Hunter did was he before, and this was the year that he went to the CrossFit Games. He went and spent like a week with coaches and athletes and kind of cherry picked ideas, you know. And he spent a week with me, and I filled him with as much as I could. I liked the guy a lot. I would do whatever. I really appealed to me, and his knowledge base was outstanding. Like as a coach, I picked up a lot from him. But this podcaster said to me how brilliant that was. And I was like, how is it brilliant? What could I give him if I've only known him for a week? I give him nothing but vanilla. But imagine the level of detail, like with a Matt Frazier, 7 years, or Rich Froning for 10 years, the level of detail, the precision, the accuracy that you're giving is actually what you create. And that's the biggest piece. Then that's where time is key. The more time that a coach can spend with an athlete, the higher level of precision. If you're still getting vanilla after 4 years, that's a concern.
Sure, of course, I 100% agree. So coming back to like that original question about Jeff, right? Of like going from what would be considered one of the strongest athletes to, for sure, the most aerobic. I mean, you might be able to argue between him and Ricky in some capacity, but just in general, how do you determine if it's swung too far? Right.
Yeah. So that's also balance, right? That's where Caroline comes in. So one of the pieces that
when you say swung too far, are you regarding volume, or what are you talking about?
Like as being the premier strength athlete in the sport to the premier aerobic, and now not revered, at least in the last couple competitions, as a stronger athlete relative to the top 10 or 15 guys.
Gotcha.
Well, if you say I would argue about last couple competitions. I don't know what you're referring to. If you're referring to the games, you have to be looking at events and the time domains and the structure of those events. And you could argue that the CrossFit Games was somewhat neutered this year because they needed to play it safe.
Sure.
And
what do you mean? Let's just talk about that. Let's expand on that. So the guys who are at the top, I mean, you know, you look at the winners. I mean, they're pretty powerful by definition.
Winners of what? The
CrossFit Games, the games,
year,
right? Yeah, this year, right? So if Jeff was still revered or considered to be one of the strongest athletes, he probably would have done maybe a little bit better.
Well, you got to look.
I don't want to say he did poorly, right? Like he's obviously still one of the fittest men on earth.
Well,
right?
I don't want to sound as I'm being defensive about it. What I'm doing is trying to be objective. Well, I mean, for me, it's not. I look at it objectively, and that's how I really do. I've had the luxury of working with a lot of people, and one of the things I never talk about is their individual abilities and performances. Like, what are their true results? Unless they release them, I'd like to look at it objectively, because I learn from other athletes. I learn, like, is that an athlete that is dominating because of some unique physical quality, right? Like the way that they've trained, or is it because they're 225 pounds?
Right.
Is that the reason why?
Sure.
And so you have to look at it in that way, right? So take, for example, Catherine Davis' daughter. One of the things that she did way back when the games were in Carson is that they had an event where it was handstand walk across the soccer field, and then what they had to do is a speed endurance test around dummy blockers, and then they pushed a sled across the field and back. Catherine Davis' daughter, she went all the way across the field on her hands.
Right.
All the way across the field, and she wins. Now, what's interesting is Matt Frazier went 10 yards, rested, shook it out, rested, shook it out. So what he was doing was he was taking where his abilities were and not pushing it too far, because there were 2 events that followed right after that. And what happened? He dominated the next 2.
Right.
He was looking at the whole package. Well, how did Catherine Davis-daughter stay in contention on that sled against Sam Briggs, but yet she still went the full way across the field? Like, unless you look at the background of that athlete, you can't answer that question.
Sure.
Because was Matt Fraser right, or was Catherine Davis-daughter right?
Right.
Well, Catherine Davis-daughter, what's her number 1 movement? What's that she's so skilled in where she doesn't get fatigued?
Yeah,
handstand walk. So that's why you have to look at it differently when you're looking at people's performances, because maybe there's some other advantage that they have in that movement.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why it's hard to say when you answer those questions. You would have to dissect and say, what's the athlete? What's the individual?
Sure.
And know their prior performances. What I was referring to was the types of events and the time domains of the events. So if you have a high VO2 max and an awful lactate threshold, you're going to be good in an event 9 minutes and under.
Right.
If you are a sprinter, if you are a strong athlete, right, you can generate power, you win the strength events, you're going to be good at 3 minutes and under.
Mm-hmm.
So if all the events are 3 minutes and under, do you think an endurance athlete has a prayer? They're not. And so that's from a top level. When you look at programming, you look at the very first thing, and that is the time domain. But in the games, they had the event with the deadlift, the run, and the handstand walk.
Right.
Long time domain.
Yep.
Well, so if you just look at time domain, you would say that was an endurance event, but was it?
I mean, well, you put on
too many other elements. Yeah.
You're on a runner biases power,
But
right,
what-
over flat ground.
But it was a handstand walking event. If you weren't good in handstand walk and capacity
Under a
that
lot of fatigue. Yeah.
that's correct.
Yeah.
Then
Ton
you
of
weren't
fatigue.
going to perform well. And so you can't just say, and I never look at it going that, I look at it more objectively of like, for example, what happened.
Mhm.
But if you take a pure event such as event 1, it's just running.
Yeah.
And you can look at the time domain. Of all the events that were programmed at the games, that's the easiest one to assess an individual's ability.
Specifically with aerobic capacity.
Now,
Right, okay.
now, one caveat though. What if you intentionally decided to lose that event because you didn't want to tap yourself,
Yeah, and
right?
right. Well, I think there's
And
We
you
saw
don't
that
know
happen.
that.
Sure.
Right? You don't know that. Like we know, like, so I know Jeff intentionally lost that 5K run in whatever year that was, 3
Mhm.
years ago in Madison, right? Like because there was 2 max lifts that were
they were coming.
neurologically fatiguing that afternoon. So he never wanted his heart rate to go above 165. So there was strategy involved.
Sure.
So that's where the sports changed a lot, that athletes now are strategically thinking downstream. It used to be, I got to get as many points now.
At every single event.
Right.
The one
And-
right in front of you.
But what if your sweet spot's coming up?
Sure. I totally understand.
All right.
Do you think for Jeff specifically that there is in the percentage of his work, of his training, how much monostructural work does he do? I guess that's maybe like too personal of a question.
Not really.
okay.
I mean, I've worked with enough. He'll do 2 running workouts a week at most.
Uh-huh.
He'll integrate either a row into a workout. So when he does a rowing workout, for example, it has let's say it's a couplet where it's some movement in rowing. The rowing's always going to have a target pace, and that pace is going to hit a certain stimulus.
Right.
So making sure that those stimuluses are hit on a regular basis. So every time domain of a workout is targeted.
Okay.
Same thing. So he'll do 1 echo bike. He'll do 1 C2 bike long in the week. The core of what he does though is a run, a C2 bike,
Mhm.
and the echo bike. And the reason why C2 bike is of value is because you could do a long time domain
Yeah.
and still have it be transferable into the movement of running. So he could do a lot of his zone 2 type of training on a C2 bike
Right.
and not running.
Yep.
Because the problem with Jeff now is that I don't want him to run, like really don't, over an hour in zone 2. The problem is that he doesn't hit muscular stamina, like adaptation in that hour. He needs to do a longer amount. And so we'd rather have him do an hour and a half on a C2 bike when he does do zone 2, he goes onto a stepper, and that stepper changes the stimulus. And so we alternate between running when he does zone 2, between a treadmill and a stepper.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, there's also like the just pure contraction volume of running. Like it's just reps. It's a lot of reps. It's in general, right? In within the week, even if you are efficient, like it's still taxing on the system, the knees, etc. Compared to a C2 bike, it's also substantially harder to get the C2, like your heart rate up on a C2 bike than it is for running. At least that's what I've seen with a lot of my athletes and my personal self.
I think that you're right. So if you did a long run, the damage is in your productivity in later workouts in the week.
Yeah.
And so when I look at it, it's like, okay, what would be the point? Why would I want him to do an hour and a half running when it doesn't create a lot of running adaptation? It's not a high value of his time, and it's causing too much damage downstream.
Right.
And so it's creating that balance. But that's where Caroline comes in, of like creating better balance, of observation, of looking at these nuances. Because when I write workouts, if I wrote them for you and you're not able to do it, let's say, the reason isn't because the programming was bad. It was because something else impacted that workout. Right.
Yeah. At any point, not just specific to Jeff, do you ever feel like an athlete becomes too, so you find someone like Kalipa's probably great. He probably didn't reach that point, or Rich, you work with them for a long time. Is there a point where like you just shut it down aerobically and you're just like, you need mixed modal work?
No, what you would do is you would identify a target. So you always agree to what the goal is. So let's say that your initial goal is, I need to get my 6-minute time domain faster in a movement, and we could pick running. Well, let's say that we get close to that number, and I come to you and I go, look, we're not going to get that next 5 seconds that you want to get, or 10 meters more, or 5 seconds off of your mile time. I need another workout a week. Well, the answer is going to be more than likely no. I only want to run 2 days a week. So then what you do is you're happy with that number, you stabilize it, and you maintain it. Now what we do is we identify another target. And let's just say it's your 1-minute time domain. So now we have a target of hitting, let's say, 400 meters in 1 minute. We get to 390 meters in 1 minute. Well, I need a third day in order to get the rest of the way there. The answer is no. So we stabilize and maintain that, and we go after now 3,000 meters, or we can go after 5,000 meters. So what you're doing is you are targeting the highest value of time initially, and the longer you're with that athlete, what you're doing is you are stabilizing all of these time domain markers. Ironically, though, when you attack, let's say, a 6-minute time domain because of neurological efficiencies, doing repetition, it's going to make your 400 time faster.
Right.
And so looking at the relationship between how the interplay occurs is what we do.
Got it. Okay. I think I'm digesting. Yeah. I'm
We knew on this episode that he was going to be doing a lot. It depends on the guest, and he had a lot of questions.
Yeah. So where do you feel is like the biggest bang for your buck, as far as like you can only do one like one machine or running, etc.? Like where are you going to?
I would run. Absolutely.
And why is that?
Because most of what we do are standing and supporting our structure, and you have to be able to carry that structure. I mean, one of the things that, just looking at it in terms of rowing and running, why is there a weight class in running? I mean, in rowing. Why?
Yeah, for sure.
Right. And the equalizer is because when you run, if a bigger person runs, they have more muscle mass, meaning they can process more oxygen, but now they have to carry that weight. And so that's why when you get a VO2 max test done on running, they divide your milliliters of oxygen per minute by your kilograms of body weight.
Right.
Weight matters. It's your sprung weight. And so, if you can run, you should run. One of the biggest workouts that now I'm writing, and I do a lot of it. Matter of fact, I was just down at the preseason training camp for the Cleveland Cavaliers, and I got the entire 21 player roster on the track walking with the ruck.
I was going to say, I was like, you didn't have them running distance.
But why not? I mean,
no, I think they should, but I know they don't. I mean, basketball players and like distance running is like, it's very,
So that's
frowned
interesting. Let's talk that through, since because I know you nerd out on that. They play 5 games in a week and they measure their distance. They average 2.5 miles in a game.
right.
When we were at camp, every one of them is monitoring how much distance they're going. In practice, one of their top players went 4.1 miles in practice.
What was that time frame?
It's over a 2.5, 3 hour time period, but it's still 4.1 miles on your feet. It's an endurance athlete. And imagine doing, in the regular season, you're doing 5 games, that player.
Mm-hmm.
So that distance is more than most CrossFit elite athletes run in a week.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Right. And most of what those players are doing, there's 100 accelerations in a game. It's a phenomenal amount of sprinting, not only just lateral, diagonal, forwards and backwards, right? It's a lot of sprinting related work.
Right.
And so, but my point is that what I do a lot of is nowadays is working people where they walk and they carry a ruck. And the ruck, the purpose of it is to put their heart rate into that zone 2 to create that cardiorespiratory adaptation. Why walking? Why can't they just go on a treadmill and walk straight up, on a steep incline? Well, what's more transferable to real life?
Sure.
And so rucking and carrying a weight, like right now with baby boomers, I mean, they're all aware of longevity. They're aware of doing zone 2. The problem is that they can't run.
Right.
And so walking is something, like I walk with my wife all the time, and, I carry 22 pounds and she carries, almost 15 pounds. And we walk together. We're both in that, zone. We do our 4 miles every other day. And it's just an easier way for us to get that cardiorespiratory longevity adaptation. It's not performance, right? Performance is a whole different subject on zone 2, but we do hit that marker of longevity by just doing a ruck.
So like when I love the ruck, it's definitely, are you sure you're not following the TikTok trend of everyone rucking? I'm just kidding.
I'm not on social, so I have no idea.
Oh yeah. That's like it's like the big thing. Every mom, millennial mom is rucking. I love it. It's great.
I think it's awesome.
It is.
So I didn't know. I don't do any of that. So
do you, so for the Cavs specifically, like, are they doing actual structured running, or you just let practice be their running and then their zone work is ruck biased?
No, so let's talk that through. And one of the pieces that I realized in the NBA is that the sprinting is taken care of, right? They do so much of that when they play.
Right.
It's a phenomenal amount of sprinting. So people want to know, like, they're taking 16, 18 steps the length of the court. They're running, it's 5-15 mile pace. It's phenomenal that these guys, it is a violent, aggressive sport.
Yeah.
Right.
But every player has 2 other speeds that you see all the time. They all walk at a cadence. That's every time they're walking cadence. So let's say it's 110 steps per minute. It's always at 110. Do they train that walking cadence? Do they practice it other than in the game? So if you, let's say, have a walking cadence of 110 steps per minute, that's interesting to me, right? The more time you practice that, the more efficient you become at it. But if you're not practicing it, meaning when you walk, there's no intention, then there's no real adaptation in terms of its specificity to when they're playing the game. So there's 6 C2 bikes on the court. Every now and then, a player will go over and they'll spin on the bike. There's no intention behind it. But if you're doing it for recovery, like you would a walk after a sprint, then you should be on that bike at your walking cadence. So that would be 55 RPMs.
Right.
You would adjust the damper, maybe down to a damper of 1, and you just spin and hit 55 RPMs, meaning there's intention behind it.
Sure.
So everything should be with intention, in my opinion. If you do something, why are you doing that? And if you can't answer that question as an athlete, then why are you doing it?
Yeah. Oh yeah, 100%. I couldn't agree more. Oh my gosh, 100%.
Right. So if you're doing a jog,
right,
what is their jog?
Yeah.
Speed. What is their jog cadence?
Yeah. Well, I also think like there's purpose behind it, and it's okay to just go do it, but the purpose behind it is for, like mental health or whatever that might be, or to disengage or something to that effect too. Like some of my athletes, like, I don't feel that great today. I'm like, all right, what do you want? Like, I want to do something. I'm like, put your headphones on or leave your headphones off and just go run. Don't time it. Turn around when you're ready to turn around. Don't worry about anything structured, because sometimes the structure, like the over structure, fatigues an athlete mentally and whatnot too.
Well, and certainly your everyday affiliate athlete, right? Like that is so much more, it
Right,
depends on who the demographic that you're speaking to, for sure.
Yeah.
But the more elite you are,
Yes.
the more you should be asking those questions.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Totally.
Oh,
Because,
yeah, without a doubt.
like here, just take, since we're talking about zone 2, I hear about zone 2 all the time from the elite level. Okay, but think about zone 2. Zone 2 is heart rate based training.
Right.
And when you hear a Peter Attia talking about it, he is talking about it in terms of longevity. But is that what a CrossFit athlete should be thinking about, is longevity, right? If you want to win the games, you don't care about that. What you care about is performance.
Sure.
I mean, let's cut all the nonsense aside. You care about performance.
Right.
And by you training at, let's say your zone 2 is a heart rate of 155, how is that creating performance? It's creating cardiorespiratory adaptation. But if you did a 5K, I'm not going to ask you what your average heart rate was.
Not sure what pace was.
I want to know how fast you were, meaning your finishing time.
Yeah,
that's performance. And and so there's a disconnect. If an athlete doesn't take ownership, and this goes back to what we talked about in the beginning, asking that why, right? Because if they've never taken ownership, they're not even sure if they should be asking why.
Sure.
They're just doing what they're told.
Mm-hmm.
That's a problem. So take, for example, like Adler 4 years ago, his zone 2 heart rate, upper limit of that zone was a heart rate of 156. So that's interesting. Today, he's still training at that upper limit of 156.
Yeah, but he's probably 3 minutes a mile faster.
There you go. See, so that's what you just said.
Yeah.
That's performance.
Right.
And now you know the prescription working. If you just did 156 heart rate 4 years ago and you're doing today, how do you know that even works?
Right. Yeah, 100%.
I love that.
Do you
unpacking that in that way? That was
well. That's the whole purpose of it, right? Like if you're gonna do zone, and that is zone even appropriate for CrossFit? Like there's I think there's a lot of like ups and downs, or differing opinions. Did you see WOD Science's the zone 2 video? Yeah.
I met with. I had dinner with them in Germany just a few weeks
recently. Yeah, I thought it was really cool. It was interesting, right? And so for those that don't know, a lot of people that watch the show have seen it, but the essence of it was zone is great for like cyclical pattern type stuff, even machines, etc. Very challenging for mixed modal, elevation change, contractions, load bearing things. So for Adler specifically, do you do any of that? Have you like changed your methodologies over the years? Like, early on with Kalipa or Rich or Katrin, did you do mixed modal stuff for zone focus, or was it always RPE? Like, was that a eye-opening thing or
No, but you would do is mixed modal to dose a higher heart rate and then work on the shunting, the transfer of blood from, let's say, doing a clean and jerk where the blood will be in your arms, and then you go into a run and it has to transfer to the legs, and the duration of time it takes to transfer that blood to settle into.
You said shunting, like shuttling, like lactate shuttling. Okay. And so did you ever do zone based like mixed stuff, or is it always RPE?
Still do.
You still do. So
yeah, RPE doesn't make any sense to me.
Okay. So then it's against what WOD Science says, because
no. So if you hear, no, for me, it doesn't, because I end up providing a actual.
Right. Yeah.
So
okay. Yeah. It's not general. Like,
right.
But the athlete so well. Like you wouldn't be able to do that for someone you've been working with for a month. Or
I wouldn't
2
do
weeks.
it for any athlete, because if an RPE, if I asked you to do let's say a 30-minute run at RPE 3, right?
So walk for so many people.
Yeah. Well, and there are so many variables.
But if you do 30, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but if you do 30 minutes at RPE 3, what's your starting speed and what's your ending speed?
Should be the same. Well, it should be. It should change technically, but it won't. It'll stay the same, and then the RPE will elevate.
No, because you got to stay at RPE 3. You were saying I didn't say to go to RPE 4.
Right.
I want RPE 3.
Yep.
Right. So you're not going to write a workout that says you're going to do 30 minutes and it's going to be 10 minutes at 3, then 10 minutes at 4, and 10 minutes at 5. I want it all at 3.
Right.
So it's the same thing with doing zone-based training. You're going to start fast and you're going to get fatigued and you're going to slow down.
Right.
So when we talk about performance, what was the performance adaptation in that 30-minute run? And that's my issue.
Sure.
So that's why what I would do is I would actually say to you, look, as soon as your speed or your RPE changes, I don't want you to slow down. What I want you to do is I want you to take a small break, right?
Right.
Maybe even walk, right? Allow the heart rate to recover, get back into control, and go back into the same exact speed that you started with.
Mhm.
Because what I want is I want to create 30 minutes of time at a targeted performance speed. And so that's where I write it a little different.
Sure. I mean, I think that's like when you look at, again, it depends on who you're reading about zone 2, but it's like goal pace in the zone, right? You have these two variables, right, which theoretically are sort of working against each other, but you have to take the breaks, and a lot of people don't usually do that, right? And so
because they feel it's bad for some reason,
right. And I think that feel as bad as, the whole like, oh, we're building blood capillaries and it builds recovery and it builds our repeatability efforts, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, right.
And I think those are great, but I think that I think a lot of people can get lost in the weeds on taking that and making it transferable into mixed modal, which is super, like there's a huge gap in like being exceptionally aerobic and then like adding a 50-pound dumbbell and burpees, and like that aerobic athlete, unless they're just weirdly strong, they're probably not going to do that well in that transition.
Yeah,
okay, so
that does not make any sense to me. And I honestly don't understand also even using and looking at heart rate in workouts mixed modal, because
that was my next question. Okay, so you don't do that in mixed modal. So then in mixed modal for Jeff, let's hypothetically say it's going to be, he posted a video of doing like log bar muscle ups and squat clean thrusters, maybe, or squat cleans, whatever that is. So if you wrote that for him, like what would that look like? What would the parameters? Would there be any like?
I wouldn't write something like that.
Okay.
I wouldn't write something. But what I would do is I would write those two movements, and then what I want you to do is a 5-minute row, and what I wanted at is your targeted zone 2 power output. And what I'm interested in is the length of time it takes for his heart rate after those two movements that you just identified to get to his zone 2, meaning below 156.
To come down,
assuming
that it's higher.
Well,
it should be higher.
It's going to be higher. It's going to be higher. So what I monitor then is the slope of that starting heart rate and the ending heart rate and that duration.
Okay,
that makes sense?
That duration he's on the rower, or the time?
The duration on the rower, because that's the time it takes for him to get to that 156 heart rate. So what I look at is, because we know one of the major measures of aerobic fitness is your ability to recover. So the steepness of that slope, right, the drop, the reduction in that heart rate, like if you get a VO2 max test, they make you wear that mask for 2 minutes after, because they're measuring your ending heart rate from the test, your heart rate after a minute and a heart rate after 2 minutes. That slope, that rate in which it drops matters. Well, the depth in a workout of that slope also matters.
Right.
I monitor those pieces.
Okay, so in that slope, your goal is just 156 for Jeff, whatever that is.
It depends on the movement.
Sure. Okay, so let's just hypothetically say that. So he's doing that. He gets on the rower. Is the goal to row at whatever pace you need, fastest pace to get to get a reduced heart rate?
Every zone has a speed.
Okay, so
right.
So you're mandating a speed.
Right, because heart rate's just a way of monitoring intensity.
Right.
Performance is the speed associated with that heart rate.
So you have two variables that he's required to get to in this example specifically. So what does that pace on the rower look like for him?
That I don't talk about.
Yeah, okay. All right. That's fair. That's fine.
But I mean, I will tell you that his zone 2 run pace, because he's talked about, is a 650 per mile pace.
Yeah, that's bonkers.
It used to be 4 years ago 1030.
Yeah, for sure.
So, but that's where we talk about performance, right? So we said
that.
156 was 4 years ago. Today it's 156. It used to be a 1030 and now it's 650. That's performance.
Right.
Yes. Yeah, right.
And that's what athletes should be asking, like, have I improved?
Yeah.
And the only way to know you improved is you got to look at what the muscles are doing.
Yeah, it's all testing and repeatable measures.
Yeah, but not heart rate. Heart rate is just a gauge.
Yeah, sure. All right, so we just hit an hour, which is fine. We're trying, just because we're doing like every 2 hours. So one last question. This is a personal question for me.
Yeah.
So I'm extremely aerobic athlete. I've never been very strong. Whatever I've tried, it just is not my thing.
Yeah.
I have a true max heart rate of like 176, maybe 175.
How old are you?
35, and it's never, maybe a couple times I've like looked down, just wrist wear, I've seen 180 and I just don't, but like on a chest strap, and it has to be like dead sprints, 800s at all out efforts. And I've always felt, and I have, like blood pressures fine, resting heart rates in like mid 30s. And so I've always felt that I've been pretty good at CrossFit, but like, I don't know, power, like I feel like my low heart rate has like kind of hindered potentially like oxygen, like transportation, like within. Do you have any thoughts on that?
So tell me the question then. So
I just like a general thought, like,
you're not able to get your heart rate up, or?
Yeah, I mean, I can push hard and I can sprint and I can do all the things, and I was pretty good at CrossFit in general, but it just never broke that. Do you feel like that's something that, because I've trained with other people that their comfortable zone is 185 to 190 for the whole hour we're running, and I'm at 161 maybe.
So
and
that's
yeah.
So I do see this a lot. So I've been using heart watches since the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
So when Polar came out with the first wearable, I was one of the first people that I was on board with that program. So I'm fully steeped in that whole heart rate based piece. In my opinion, one of the greatest triathletes ever to exist is a guy by the name of Mark Allen. Just a phenomenal talent on every level, meaning he was good at 1 hour triathlons and dominated in Kona. Year over year over year. His lists of wins are unprecedented. When I trained with him in San Diego one time and we were on the bike, we were moving hard. My heart rate was right at my threshold, which was around 179, 180. I was in my 20s. Well, he's slightly older than me, but he was also on the edge, and his heart rate was 156.
Yeah.
His relative intensity was the same.
Right.
And it made me realize early on when I was in my 20s, there's a difference. Just because he's at 156 does not mean that I am working harder than him.
Sure.
There is a radical difference. And I've seen it on the opposite scale where there's athletes that, they're hovering at 205.
Didn't you say that Rich was like that? Or someone said Rich was like that?
Yeah, I'm not sure about Rich. Rich was a very
someone
late.
Said that.
Yeah, I think so.
Rich was a very late adopter in heart rate.
Mm-hmm.
But that's where I've realized that there is a big difference. The concern I would have, and I've seen this also, where athletes say I can't get my heart rate up.
Right.
And that I think is a measure of intention. So like when I worked with Tia, one of the things that she did was she lost early on. This was in 2016 when we worked together, that she thought she was working hard. Her definition of hard was that she thought. But in reality, when you look at numbers that I do, it's like, yeah, you are working hard, but in reality, yeah, okay, your Fran time dropped, by 30 seconds, but it should have dropped by 45.
Sure.
And so what I do is I look at numbers, and it's really truly defining what high intensity is.
Mm-hmm.
And we saw this with Jeff at Rogue when it was in Texas that last year, and they had that event where you carried that heavy ruck, and then it was a lighter ruck, and then it was
right.
He had a heart rate in that event that he has never seen before.
Okay.
Like in terms of height. And what it was he wanted to win because he didn't win. People like thought that he wasn't a good runner, right? So he wanted to win.
Right.
Well, his heart rate was astronomically high, and it set a new bar for him of what true high intensity really was. And a lot of athletes at the elite level need to redefine what high intensity is. Here's the problem with that. So what happens when you do that high intensity, if you think about it, that suffering that you feel, there's got to be an adaptation, right?
Right.
Like all of a sudden it doesn't feel as bad. The more time you train suffering at that level, the body adapts to it. And so like one of the things that I realized in doing, racing as a professional triathlete and the amount of suffering that I did for 8 years, you adapt to not feeling the things that you should feel when you're older because it's just gone away. And it's the part that actually concerns me, because when you become numb to lower levels of pain, right, because of the extreme levels, and it occurs in CrossFit all the time, you're not going to be able to bring that sensitivity back. And so as an older athlete,
That's
My
an
poor
interesting
wife
concept.
ends up, I end up going to the hospital because I have a stomach ache and I find my intestines are twisted and, that we may have to operate.
And you
And
think
it just
that's like
feels a stomach ache?
like a trained response?
I don't know. I would love
an
to hear
interesting
from people
physiological
about
concept.
that. But
Yeah.
I suffer from it. I've been to the hospital 3 times and it's like it felt like a stomach ache, or it felt like, and it was like, you have we're going to do surgery.
Yeah, that's an interesting one.
Well, did you see that David Goggins, one of his more recent things, like he did some 240-mile thing or whatever it was, and his rib cage completely shifted. Like what his apparently anyway, the doctor that was working with him was explaining it in a video that they posted, and it was an insight that I guess he usually doesn't share things like that about what his experiences are at these events. And it was some type something that would take anybody else out.
Right.
They're not doing
the
that.
Extreme level, and somehow in some way, because the body can't self-select itself of going, oh, I'm just going to feel like stomach issues and my rib cage rotating. It's like you have trained your neurological system to be numb.
Yeah.
And so that's how you elevate into a higher level of suffering.
Yeah.
It doesn't hurt twice as bad. It feels the same as it did before.
Right.
It's no different than doing more volume. The body adapts to the stimulus.
Yeah.
And so that's the area that I think about in terms of CrossFit, because in the sport of CrossFit, there is a level of suffering that these athletes experience on a regular basis, unlike any other sport.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you wonder long-term, are they going to feel the things that they need to feel to take care of themselves?
Yeah.
Right? That's fascinating to me.
That's an interesting one. I'd love to find some research on that aging sensitivity to pain or something like that.
Yeah.
Some like younger, but it's interesting. So I'm a physical therapist, and it never fails that the person that I see the most is the person that says they have the highest pain tolerance, and they always know that something's really, really long. And then the person that I never see is the one that is like, oh yeah, I went in and my shoulder's been dislocated for 7 years. And they're just like, oh, okay. And I'm like, well, you could see it. You didn't notice it. Like, yeah, I just thought it was kind of whatever. And so it's such an interesting concept.
Well, that's why I feel like, people that are listening, that's what coaching is like, that any stimulus you put on the body, there is an adaptation, and it's logical. That's what makes the body so fantastic. If you want to learn a foreign language, then you put that foreign language stimulus and the body learns it.
Mm-hmm.
No matter what you give it, it can adapt to it. This is where you need an athlete, though, to participate, or a coach that works with that athlete to participate, because athletes don't know what they need. They don't know the stimulus. And so that's the hardest part. As a coach, that's where I struggle with the most. Like, of all the things that we could be doing, what should we pick?
Yeah.
Well, if you don't have interaction with an athlete, like if there's an athlete that says, just tell me what to do, why don't you just go to get a PDF off online?
Right.
Because I couldn't help you then.
Yeah.
And that's where, but the current population of everyday athlete is in tune with that.
Mm-hmm.
Because why? They want that personalized feature that the champions get. And that is the movement in the sport right now, is they want that athlete-centered model, because they don't have unlimited time. So if they do train,
Needs to be intentional.
Why are we rucking?
Right. Yeah, everything's intentional.
Right.
That's what I tell everyone. And you don't even need to be the elite athlete, in my opinion. That's what I tell everybody. So we do one-on-one coaching. That's our thing.
Yeah.
And one of our things. Thanks, Claire. Always, I'll make sure that I don't sell ourselves short. So, like, oh, I'm not an elite athlete, I don't need one of them. Like, do you want to get better? Can you afford it? So obviously, that was the number one thing. Like, is it going to cause more stress than it's worth? Because if it's not, then it's not. This is a no-brainer. And do you want to get better? And are you do you have a lot of variables that need to be considered in training? And so, if the answer is yes, you're kind of time limited, you have the money, and you're just really invested in improving yourself, then one-on-one coaching or athlete-centered, whatever you want to call it, like individual design, is always the best answer. Yeah. Right? It's always the best answer.
But 5 years ago, you didn't hear about it.
Right. Yeah, you heard about it a lot less, for sure. There was way less people, and so it's good though. It's great for business. Yeah, I love it.
Do you think that this whole trend in programming and AI, it's going to actually make that so it is available to everybody, and it's going to be mainstreamed, and it's going to be easy, much easier in the future to?
Oh, for sure. I think
where everything is going to be here's your personal number when you walk into the gym.
Yeah, I think so for sure. I think CrossFit in and of itself in this unknown, there's so much nuance within that. So I've been in the strength world. I've done football, basketball, track, sprinting, distance, cross country. Like I've been,
Look at this guy.
I've programmed a lot of it. Like I've well prior to CrossFit, and CrossFit is hands down the hardest, right? Because there's so much nuance, there's so much intermingling, mixed modal, etc. And so as a coach, as someone who does one-on-one coaching, AI is certainly a threat to our job, right? Like overall, but I think with CrossFit in and of itself, unknown and unknowable, has done a great job of like being AI combative in general. And so, but I do think something like a High Rocks or like traditional powerlifting sports or traditional running, triathlons, things like that, like very much so. It's like, here are your numbers, and you know, like you plug them, you can, a lot of them are plug and play anyways, right? You know, and so I for sure think we're going to see a big thing up. But on the flip side of that, the back and forth is what is not there, and people just like to be coached, right? They like the human interaction.
Absolutely.
And so I think it's still relatively safe.
But the level of precision is going, it's so close. Like that's why during the talk today, what I do is, so I'm decent in math, and I scraped all of the, High Rocks does a great job in the results, and I scraped their website, and I put together the averages between genders and age groups of what are average results for each of those. Well, let's say that you walk in the door as a High Rocks athlete, and you want to join a CrossFit gym because you want to work on your station and ability, right? Your all of those obstacles. What I have done is just, and it's simple, and AI will be able to do this easier down the road, but I had to do it more manually. I would ask you, do you have a projected finishing time? And you would say, you know what? I don't know. If you did, I'm going to load in that time, and this formula, this calculator, will, based upon all historical averages, your gender, age, here's where your target run times need to be. And oh, by the way, here's your training paces, right? Immediately just off of that. Well, if you don't know, here's the average finishing time for your gender and age group in the open division. Here's your target. We'll plug in, let's use that until we actually get better numbers on you. Today, that's immediately given, and everybody here is going to get that today, meaning you're going to have an athlete-centered training model based upon your projected finishing time at a High Rocks event. That's how simple it really is, right? So if you're going to now do a rowing workout, and you're identified it as a low-intensity row in a mixed modal workout, right? You're just using it as a active recovery. Here's your target row pace, and you precisely know where it is. There's a level of precision, and that's where we are today. I think in the future, most of these movements, based upon the structure of the workout, right, the targeted intent, right, what stimulus are we trying to achieve, athletes will have a targeted pace. So yesterday I used a QR code in our workout. The QR code took them to a Google Sheet. I told them, enter your projected 1 mile time. It immediately, after doing that, said, here's your lactate threshold pace for the running piece of the workout. And here, based upon your entered mile time, you're in this designated running group. And it was done within the first 5 minutes of class. All 50 people hit the QR code. They opened it up, and they knew what group they were in.
Interesting.
I didn't know a single person in that group of 50 people.
So it facilitated you being able to coach more effectively because you could focus on other things.
Well, imagine you come into a class and there's your QR code, and you know, like, okay, we have rowing today. You're going to enter your 2,000 meter row time. Boom, there is your targeted pace for the rowing piece in this workout. No, I think the level of sophistication, because I'm not what AI can do, I'm not even utilizing the full extent. No, I think that will change, and that will change fitness because people are going to adapt faster.
Which is great because we like performance.
Oh, it's awesome.
That's good.
No, I think it's a great thing, and that's why I'm really looking forward. I think this AI piece, I fully embrace it, and I think that it's going to force a greater level of disclosure by top level coaches because AI is going to figure it out eventually anyway. So you might as well disclose it.
100%.
Right.
Yep. Well, cool. Well, thanks. That was a great shot. Yeah. That was an hour. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, thanks. I like your knowledge base too and your passion. And I like that, one of the things that's always nice about podcasts is like not into the vanilla. Let's talk about some like the edge of the experience piece. And I think that's important because we all want like progressive positive change. And I think like AI is a good one. I think that for fitness and what it's going to bring about is great. I think that what High Rocks is doing is great for the sport of CrossFit. I mean, I love this sport, but I want it to continue. And I think that High Rocks is a very good way for that to occur. So yeah, it's nice to be able to present on that today as a keynote.
It's like a gateway drug.
Right.
There you go.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Well, thank you very much,
Fine
guys.
by me.
Awesome.
Yep.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Chris.
Yes, thank you.
All right, guys. Thank you much. We'll be back in like 45 minutes with
Jocelyn, I believe.
Jocelyn.
Yeah, all
All
about
right.
nutrition. You'll hear a lot more from me.
A lot more from Claire. All right, guys. Have a good one.
Thank
See y'all
you.
in a bit.